I have a question about humanity. Now let's start this question off with a story. So I have a coworker that I work with regularly, and we believe a lot of the same things. There is one thing that he does, however, that confuses a lot of people, but I've come to learn about him. He likes to play devil's advocate for the sake of discussion and really thinking about an issue. So we go to the same school, we go to the same college, and he's a business major. I'm a film major. But so he was in this business ethics class, which sounds amazing because we need more business ethics, and I'm glad that it's actually a requirement at this point. Now, in that class, the question came up of climate change. How can we address it? Can we address it? How should we look at it? And his his kind of devil's advocate um, point, not expecting anybody to agree with him, was that we shouldn't do anything about it. The United States, us, will be fine. We will we will be fine because all the nations that are third world countries that have the most likelihood of being affected by climate change and being destroyed, that all those countries will be um, affected by change to such an extent that the United States and a lot of other advanced countries will be the only ones left. So we'll solve the population issue, but also the climate issue at the same time. He didn't expect anybody to agree with him. He expected a lot of vigorous debate when he said this, because this is obviously a terrible position to take, one that's actually very much opposite to the one that he actually holds. And his actual position is that we're going to reach a point where all countries have to come together, pull resources, understand how we can change things in order to combat the problem, and that we'll actually be able to address it. But what he said is the exact opposite, because he's playing devil's advocate, that we just shouldn't do anything, because all first world countries will be fine. What was troubling, however, is that most of the class agreed. And as he was hearing, as one person after another raised their hand, raised their hand, raised their hand, the professor went from person to person. Um, he started to really get worried, and he started to think about this. Like, I actually don't believe this, but so many people are agreeing. This is terrible. And he said he had this look on his face, like, what? And he looked over, and he has one friend in the class that's on the other side of the class, and they're both looking at each other because his friend knows what he likes to do, as do I, being devil's advocate, but he doesn't actually believe it. So his friend knew where he was coming from, and he looked at his friend. They're both just like, why? Why would people agree with this? Why would people be so callous in a way? So they had this look on their faces as they looked at each other. Um, Now, this kind of leads me to my question, because at the end of the class, at the end of the discussion, he basically stood up and said, by the way, I didn't believe any of that. I'm just qualifying my statement. I actually didn't believe any of that, which I imagine was an interesting way to go right at the end of the class, when the discussion died down. I imagine a lot of people might have either felt bad, stupid, or perhaps that he was more foolish than they thought, perhaps, because most people think that their point of view is correct. So this leads me to a question. What are we doing? Why can humanity not understand this one principle? That if you just care about your friends and your family, if you just try to look out for them, if you just care about even your nation, you just try to look out for your one nation, this inevitably leads to global problems, global dispassion, global selfishness. One person vying over another in a classroom is one thing, but when you do it on a global scale, humanity is not moving forward to a place where we can sustain ourselves, because everybody's just trying to get more resources, more money, more influence in every other nation. This is why things like the European Union are very important, because you get a whole bunch of different nations together and say, okay, we're going to have this currency, we're going to have this, we're going to kind of like pull our efforts as far as what we do. Or the United Nations. The United Nations is very important. Doesn't go far enough, but it's very important. Um, But if everybody's just caring about themselves and the people around them, then it's no wonder that when humanity gets so big that we've just covered the earth, and everybody, almost everybody, not everybody, is doing that thing where they just care about themselves and their people, then it's no wonder that we get all the turmoil that we see in the world today, whether it be through war, resource shortages, climate change, and that's climate change. That's a people not even caring about themselves when they're more focused on pushing out consumer products or getting other countries to manufacture those products, which also increase CO2. That they themselves increase CO2 and make it harder for their children to exist on this earth. It blows my mind that you have a bunch of rich people who are on, in the so-called elite, that, they have children, but as they, look at these issues, they're just so focused on getting money and pumping out products to get that money, to get that influence, that they say, well, I'll be dead, by the time climate change really hits humanity. And then at that point, they're not even thinking about their own children, their own people. They're choosing not to look at the information because the information is inconvenient to what they've dedicated their lives to, which is making money. And this doesn't necessarily just fall on the elite. This falls on a lot of people. We're very wasteful, myself included, in the products that we consume and how much trash we put out. And we don't push for the things that are very simple but would save so much of our time and energy and help the planet. And that's just more people, myself included, need to push for the standardization of plastic. We have 5 different kinds of plastic in the United States. And if we just had the standardization of having one kind of plastic, we'd be able to recycle way more. And of course, there's habits that human beings have that need not exist, but we're so stuck in our habits, our love for those habits, that we're sacrificing the future generations' ability to live on this planet. And what I'm talking about in reference to this particular thing is eating meat. When you force breed a bunch of cattle and force breed other animals, and of course cows produce a lot of CO2 that takes apart the atmosphere. When you force breed them, then not only are you doing that, creating more greenhouse gases, not only are you doing that, you're actually using up a lot of the world's agricultural surplus. So it takes a whole lot of water and a whole lot of food to produce a lot of corn, usually, to produce 1 pound of beef. While it might seem in first world countries that we have an unlimited amount of fresh water and we have an unlimited amounts of agricultural products, we don't. It's being felt worldwide when we force breed cattle, when we force breed other animals, because we could literally end world hunger with the amount of corn that we feed to just cattle in the United States. We could send food very cheaply throughout the world and really boost up humanity. And even, maybe we go into those countries and say, okay, we'll give you this, we'll give you this food deal and we'll distribute it to your people if you open up markets that are your market to our products. I mean, you can look at it economically. But we're so obsessed with eating meat. For some reason, it's been pushed as the masculine thing to do, the things that humans do taste good. That we're losing sight of the long-term goal of just surviving as human beings, our children surviving, their children surviving. Is this false sense of masculinity and this false sense that meat is tasty and good, so, and there's no substitutes when there's plenty of substitutes now, there's just no excuse. Are we going to continue to push that tradition at the expense of future generations? And that's the question. So what are we doing? Why are we basing ourselves so much in the reptilian brain to the extent that we're literally sacrificing the future of our children? It's almost like most people don't want to know these things, and then when a lot of people encounter them, they kind of like, they're revolted by it. Like, okay, yeah, that's a problem. I don't want to look at that. Or, oh, that's just nonsense. We'll be fine. But most of the world's leading scientists acknowledge that climate change is a very big problem, and we have very big hand in causing it. Sure, you have different eras, different ice ages that just happen on the planet, different periods where there's a lot of storms. But us having a hand in it is is the major thing that we can change, and it's what most scientists agree, that we are having a very big impact on this. And you have the Paris Concord, this agreement in Paris to try to go green in a way, and then if Trump wants to pull out of that, that's typical Trump. But my concern is, I guess you could say, just for my children, but also just humanity. The desire to just focus on oneself and one's immediate surroundings as far as friends and family, it's not working. It's produced consumerism to such an extent. No, a little bit of consumerism is fine, but to such an extent that we're using up this earth at an increasingly troubling rate. We don't have the resources to keep on going on like this. I think industrialization was a step kind of in the right direction, but how we're going about it is completely wasteful, and it's going to kill our kids. If you're not willing to look at that, if you're not really willing to actually do the research and at least just look at the information, even if you don't agree with it, then do you really love the people that are going to come after you, that perhaps are your children, your children's children? Now, there's a lot of people who think that the world's going to end pretty soon. A lot of people in the Abrahamic tradition that believe that religions, that believe the world's going to end pretty soon and Jesus is going to come down and then, rapture and all that, so why worry about it? That is a very convenient excuse, and one that people might even believe. Like, a lot of people believe that, so, why even worry about the climate? Why even worried about being the shepherd of this earth instead of its butcher? I think that people's logic falls to convenience too often. And I think that we have to remake how we understand things on a personal level, because nobody can force a new understanding on you. So when we have an older generation who is not concerned about climate change, not all of an older generation, just especially in the elite though, we have to fight back. I don't mean like physically fighting. I just mean we have to fight against the propaganda machine that a lot of these people have at their disposal because of the money and through their lobbyists. They pay lobbyists to pay politicians. Anyway, what are we doing as a race? Will we survive? I think that we will, but I think that the changes I'm talking about, they're going to have to happen within the next couple of decades. Otherwise, we're really going to start feeling it. Human beings are going to start suffering to such an extent because of the loss of resources, of coastline, and if this war of religions in the Middle East keeps on happening as a result of the Abrahamic religions, we're going to be more focused on that than we are actually preserving humanity as a whole, because it's harder to actually embrace things that will affect all of us than it is to just try to allow your nation, your people to win out. Those long-term concerns need to be immediate concerns. And the immediate concerns are usually ones that aren't even necessary. I would like to say that I'm holding this little lamp here with the ghee and a wick because I think that there's hope for humanity. But I think somebody needs to keep it lit. I think somebody needs to feed the flame of hope and feed the flame of action. And when it gets close to going out, make the wick longer, make the extension of your knowledge and your influence longer, and try to explain to more and more people, try to do more actions that will actually benefit the environment, planting trees, getting people's awareness up on recycling and what you can recycle, what you can't, and really just allowing yourself to spread the information that is going to be the biggest problem in the next 100 years for humanity. Spreading information is very important, and the actions you make are very important, even if you seem small. But, just choosing to have a water bottle that you fill up instead of just getting a new bottle and a bottle and a bottle. That's one thing you can do. You can use, you can have a garden. personal garden that doesn't that you produce just a little bit of food out of, so that you use less plastic. You can not eat meat and support organic gardening, ones that are not genetically modified, which are not sustainable in the long run because a lot of these genetically modified foods do not produce seeds, which is a very big problem. That's what keeps on farmers coming back to Monsanto, and then that's going to be a problem for us in the future as well. All these little actions, they affect things, and mainly, not, that's very big, but mainly you spread information, because we're working against a propaganda machine that is concerned more about monetary influence right now than the long-term survivability of humanity. So what are we doing? More of us need to do more. Keep that flame lit. Feed it with the compassion that you have for future generations, so that we can make it and we don't die because of our own stupidity. Thank you very much for watching, and hope all of you have a great day, and I hope you influence many people. Thank you.